Hi, my name is Cheryl Jessam, and I'm here to share my story with you today, my journey with Jesus. I was born in a small town in Ontario. My life was kind of crazy when I was young. My parents split up when I was about 6, I guess it was, and things kind of were a little crazy after that. We moved back and forth several times between my mom and dad. Saw a lot of things when I was young that I really probably shouldn't have seen. There was a lot of things that went on at my mom's house that didn't go on at my dad's house, so when we were at my mom's, things were kind of crazy. She was a partier, and she liked to have her parties and stuff. She worked hard too, but there was a lot of partying going on, and lived with several different characters here and there. We had a couple of male strippers lived with us once, and different people and things like that. So I saw a lot of partying and was involved in a lot of things. By the time I was 16, I had, well actually I guess before I start there, I should also mention the fact that I lost my virginity at the age of 13 to a 31-year-old man. Things were pretty bad. I thought it was a great thing to do because I had had a couple of drinks, and of course being at that age very quickly was loaded and didn't realize half of the things that were going at the time, and did lose my virginity. Thought I was pregnant right away too. That's how naive I was at that age. It was pretty scary stuff. I went on from there to get into worse things, I guess you could say. When I was at my mom's, everything was crazy. Like I said before, it was, their rent sometimes wasn't paid, and we'd be evicted and moving into different places, or things were being cut off, or there wasn't enough money. And when I would go to my father's place, when I was there, things were always well taken care of. They lived in a beautiful home. I started just to live with my mom most of the time because things were easier to get away with her, and I just kind of wanted to do my own thing, and I ditched school, and that was the end of that. I decided I didn't need any more school and left that. I was living with my mother when I was 16, and I had my boyfriend living there with us as well. And things weren't so hot there either because there was always big parties going on, and my mom's friends would be there partying as well, and it was pretty crazy. It was chaotic. The drugs became quite heavy, quite prominent through my life. I had, at the age of 24, I had a little boy. He was a wonderful kid. It was wonderful. And then I had a little girl down the road after that, and things were rough. I mean, I was able to take care of my kids and stuff, but there was still things going on in my life that just weren't right, and I knew that. I could feel that. Just now and then, every now and then, I would stop and think and wonder what really was out there. Like, is there something out there for me? Is there a life out there that's better than this? Is there something better? Like, there's always a question. And I used to look up at the sky and stuff and just think and wonder what really was there. Was there anything up there? Was there anybody around? Like, just so many questions, and just never had an answer or anything. After I had my children, I was living with the father of my little girl, and he was quite ill. He was dying of severe Crohn's disease. He was very sick, and it was really rough. And during my whole pregnancy, he denied the baby was his whatsoever, absolutely not his child and everything else, and it was a pretty rough pregnancy. When she was born, he laid off that a bit, and he was quite sick himself. He was like this Crohn's disease, so we had arranged for him to go into a Crohn's disease research program. This doctor, top doctor of Crohn's disease research in the entire country, put him on a program, and they've taught me how to give him needles twice a week for 6 weeks. And half the people got placebo and half the people got the real drug. At the end of the study, it turned out he was one of the ones who received the placebo, so he was therefore able to get the real drug for free when it was approved. So he did, and he progressively got really healthy and really good, and got back into his normal tanning and buffing routine and everything, and up and left me and my children. So I guess at that point I kind of had, I guess, a bit of a breakdown, and I went out one night and got involved in crack cocaine. I'd seen a friend do it, and it didn't seem so harmful, and I figured it was okay. And myself being with an addictive personality, I tried this stuff and was immediately hooked, beyond hooked. Like, that stuff has such a grip over you, especially over women. It's such a strong drug, and it's such a horrible thing. Like, it's just a yearning, a need, a want. Like, it's just overpowering, absolutely overpowering. I ended up staying out all that night, didn't come home, and ran into a couple of characters that night with a 16-year-old girl. She was a really pretty young girl. I find out she was a prostitute, and she also had an 9mm on her. And these two people with this young girl decided to hold me at gunpoint at their house for 3 days straight. The worst part about it was my house was just right around the corner. One of the guys got up and he was looking out one of the windows and was talking on his cell phone saying, make sure you wash the fingers, and all kinds of things like this. Really odd things to say, and I didn't know what they had in mind. And as soon as I heard them say that about washing the fingers, I was seeing fingerprints or heavens knows what else it could have been, and I had a sudden burst of energy, and I just pushed myself through one of the doors and raced off, not caring whether they were going to shoot me or not. I just wanted to get out of there, and I did. I managed to get away. And I should have known back then I had somebody watching out over me, because things could have turned out really bad in that situation. And instead of making myself go and disappear from that scene, I decided that since my boyfriend at the time had left us, and my mother was taking the kids down to her house to stay with her for a while because I was in such a mess and having such a hard time, that I just said, to heck with everything, and I just went off on a rampage. I immersed myself in the world of crack cocaine and everything that went with it. Days on end of walking around totally high and not caring, not wanting to face reality in any way, shape, or form. I didn't want to do anything with reality at all. I had nobody. I felt like I had nobody. I felt so sorry for myself, and just such despair and such sadness and just such overwhelming pain to deal with, and nobody to reach out to. There was nobody there, nobody. So I just immersed myself in that life heavily. And it got really bad. And during that time, I was raped, I was beaten, I was involved in many bad things. It was a pretty horrible way of life and a pretty scary way of life. Life was very, very frightening. I miss my family, I miss my children. Things were just horrible, just horrible. During this time, I had met somebody who was really nice and kind of was like a sugar daddy to me, I guess you could say. He was my boyfriend, and I would go there when I felt like it, and when I felt like I needed to sleep and eat, and he would take care of me, and and he was the only person that was there for me. He wouldn't give up on me. He just seemed to always be there. Anyways, I ended up during this time somehow becoming pregnant. I didn't stop doing drugs during that time. I still was on my level of despair, I guess I was calling it, and I decided to continue doing what I was doing. I had no respect for myself or the little baby I was carrying, because that drug just eats you up so much, and people don't understand that it's just total depravity. It takes your whole mind. It takes any normal thinking, any normal thoughts. None of that matters. None of it matters. It overrides everything. That drug is just such a draw, such a strength to it, that it eats you alive. Like, it's horrible. I would go 7 days straight, not eating, not sleeping, nothing, until the point where I literally had to collapse. And just, I would eat, and whatever I could find, I would eat whatever I could get my hands on, and then I'd pass out for 2 or 3 days straight. And my boyfriend would come and check on me all the time to see if I was even still breathing, because he thought I was dead practically, because I was such a dead sleep for so long. And things got really bad. I ended up having the child, and they wouldn't let me have her, of course. Kept the baby there at the hospital, and the services were already called in to take care of it. I took off from the hospital because I was scared to death. I knew I was wanted by the police for some stupid things, missing court and just dumb things like this, petty things. And I took off and ran away and just tried to get myself, I just went crazy doing as much drugs as I could get my hands on. Like, it was just not worth anything anymore. It felt like life was done. I had hurt this child, myself and my family, and there was nobody left there to reach out to. And I was yearning so badly for somebody to be there, to love me, to help me. I just wasn't finding it. So I went to jail. I just knew, one day I just decided this was the end of it, and I couldn't handle it anymore, and I went to my boyfriend's place where I knew they would look for me, the police, and sure enough, I went in there, and he made me something to eat, and I grabbed a whole handful of downers and just pushed them down my throat, and sure enough, they picked me up and took me in, and I slept for a couple of days straight because of the medication I'd taken. When the haze cleared and I came out of the mess I was in and realized, okay, this is where I am, and now I have to deal with it. My mother, thank heavens, she came down and took my little girl into her custody and took her home with her to her place. And due to the fact that my mother didn't have any help or anything, she reached out to the community newspaper in Pembroke. And the lady that wrote the article was very kind, and she reached out to the community saying my mother needed help, and she was a grandparent raising a grandchild. And it was also about the community at Pembroke, because there are so many grandparents raising grandchildren here in Pembroke. There's tons of them, and we never knew how many. It was quite surprising. So a lot of people from the community, they reached out and helped my mother and brought her like a crib and some diapers and different things, different services were helped and offered. There was one particular person who reached out, and God has all glory coming to him, because this lady reached out to me and asked my mother if she could write to me in jail. And my mother said, well, I don't know why you'd want to. She might not answer, but you can go ahead. So all of a sudden these cards and letters started coming into jail. And I was reading them and stuff saying, Jesus loves you, you can be forgiven, you've got beautiful children, you can have a great life and all this. And I'm thinking, what a bunch of nonsense. Who is this person writing to me? You don't know me from Adam, and you're writing to me telling me all these things and telling me I can have a new life and be forgiven and start again and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, well, obviously you don't care too much about me, because you're not even putting a return address on the letters. I can't even write back to you. I don't know who you are. So obviously it's not meant to be, right? And there's nothing to it. The very next day after saying that, a card showed up with her address on the back, which was bizarre. And I thought, well, maybe there is something to this. There's got to be something to this. So when I finally got out of jail, my first impulse was to go out and do drugs and just go party hard, because that's what you dream about when you're in jail. You just can't wait to get out and get right back at it. So I got out, and I was thinking about the fact that this woman said that my 3 beautiful babies were waiting for me, and that there could be a good life out there. And so when I got out there to go out and party that weekend, it didn't work. Everything seemed so wrong and so bad and so dirty and scary, and I couldn't stay. I couldn't. I went and got my boyfriend at the time, and I dragged him and the 2 cats we had in a couple of measly little boxes we managed to keep. And I called a friend at 4 o'clock in the morning and demanded him to give us a ride to Pembroke. And he did. I got to hold my baby that night. I got to hold my other 2 children. I hadn't seen them forever. And I got to hug my mother, of course, through all this. And that night I had a dream, actually a dream that occurred all night. I know it was between good and evil, because I kept dreaming like I was suffocating. Something was suffocating me and holding me down and just trying to hurt me. And every little while, all of a sudden, I could see like a brightness, and I would start to breathe again, and everything seemed to calm down a bit. And it was like all night this went on. I kept smothering, feeling like I was being sucked back down, and then I would be okay. And I thought, that's it. In the morning when I get up, I'm going back with Mario. I can't do this. I'm no good to them. I'm just going to hurt them all. I'm no good. And when I woke up in the morning and I walked outside, there was a note, and a few boxes were sitting there and some coffee, and it said, Cheryl, I had to leave. Something told me I had to get home. So I left. So my ride was gone, and I guess goodness prevailed because I was able to stay. I stayed. And then the person that wrote me those letters showed up in the driveway of my house that day, and my mom's house, with a rose from each child. And I got to meet her for the first time. She brought me to the church. I really enjoyed it. It was really peaceful and wonderful people and friendly and kind. And one day during the worship service, we were in the middle of worship, and my boyfriend and I we looked at each other and we just kind of both decided at the same time that we wanted to do something pretty big right then and there. And we looked at our friend and she took us to the front of the church, and our pastor was praying. He had his eyes closed and he said he felt such a presence. When he opened his eyes, we were standing there giving our hearts to Jesus. And I became a Christian and I became a follower of Jesus, and I love him with all my heart and soul. And I've gone through lots of things. Become a Christian, it's a wonderful thing, it's great. And everything's not always hunky-dory, as they say, but there's just so much more out there that you can do and set your heart to it. And now I have God with me to get me through things. I'm not anywhere near to be the place I want to be yet as a Christian. There's a lot of things I need to still work on in my life, and things that I need to do and I want to do. My body's a temple for the Holy Spirit, and I want to honor God and do all the right things that we need to do as Christians. We learn, we take our time, we learn, and things do come about. Things really do if you work really hard and ask for God's help. He can get us through absolutely anything, and I'm living proof. Just stop and think before you do anything, because there's always a better choice, and there is a better choice. Truly, God is the only way that I got away from that drug. I did not go back to it. I don't think about it. I think about the bad things that have happened, and I'm so grateful for God's forgiveness, because the guilt of that alone was enough to crush me. It felt like killing me because it was so hard. And there's even days today when I still, think about different things, and and I know what that is, and I just give it a boot and I say, back off, get behind me, because I am a child of the King. And I can overcome anything. Anything I set my mind to, with him I can do. Heaven is an eternity coming to us, and I'm so very excited about that day when it does come. But till then, there's so many people out there that we need to reach, out there struggling and suffering. And I'd like to say the most is to my church family. I'd like to say thank you, because the day that we were saved, all of you, all the members of this church came down and all lined up in a great big huge line and hugged us, every one of them. And so many people said welcome, and they were incredible. The people were just phenomenal. I met real people with real genuine hearts and real talk. I just love worship time. It's my most favorite time at church, is because I lose myself in it and the tears flow. And I know every time the tears flow, more healing comes. There's a place I'd like to get to, and I'm going to get there, because God doesn't stop until it's finished.